So were there any altars that came out that did not like you, or that were difficult?
You know, if there had been an altar, or if there will be an altar in the future who might not like me, well, that's okay. I would want to try to get to know the person. I'm not a mean person, and maybe I can change his or her mind. We don't have to like each other, but we do have to live with each other.
I was okay. He's been great at understanding that he has an individual relationship with each of my parts. He went on board with that, and that's made it a lot easier for all of us to be able to develop those different relationships.
That's the number one advice that I give anybody who, of the few people that I've been able to talk to that were spouses of somebody with D.I.D, and it was newly found out and everything. That's the main thing I say is, you can't expect to take everything from this relationship that you've had with the host for the last however many years. You can't expect all that to just transfer on to all the others. It's starting at square one, and you have to earn trust, and you have to figure out, you know, what y'all like to do together. It's going to be different. And you know, the things that when Lil's out, the things that we do are different than when Jay's out, JA's out, or when E's out. You know, we do different things, and we have different, just a different relationship. And so that's really good when you said that, because I think that's so very important.
And we did have an altar who, JA, who has very specific trauma memories regarding men, and it took her 9 months to be able to be in the same room as Jonathan and not be like having a fight or flight response. It took a long time for him to change her mind. And it was just by being consistent, just like how you were like, you know, hey, this is me. Do you want to do anything? And JA would be very curt and outright rude sometimes. But he understood, like, she didn't know him. She didn't choose him. Her only memories of what to expect from a relationship were really bad. And so
what to expect from men in general were really bad.
Yeah. And so he was just himself and patient and, like you said, kind. And over the course of time, she was able to have new experience to draw from.
Those of us with D.I.D have a history of trauma. It's just really little getting around that for many of us. And when we realize that our alters, our parts, often are directly related to trauma or neglect or abuse that we had, what I found most amazing about me having little Carol inside is that when Carol is fronting and she's spending time with him, afterward, and even during, but afterward, I have this feeling that I didn't get as a child, and now I can have it. That is healing.
So very healing. Like, absolutely that experience with us as well. And it's just to see, this is how it should be. Like, this is how someone should respond when you're scared or lonely or bored or angry. Yeah, and it has really changed our entire life. I've told people before, and I'll say it again, sometimes I think it's easier to heal things in parts. Because Lil can address and heal like her own thing separate from all of us, but it has a ripple effect to all of us.
And it's something where, like, you know, all throughout our the first part of our marriage, you know, maybe the first 16 years, something like that, never had a fight. Mm-hmm. She never got angry. She didn't get angry at all. And that was a thing that was just cut off because that was not something that was a safe emotion. And so it was cut off and it was locked away. And so I remember the first time that like she felt anger, and I was like, part of me was like, whoa, this is new. And
What
then
is
but part of me was also like, all right, now we're actually getting, another part of her. It's very normal for somebody to be angry about something. And so as I met these other alters, I would see parts of her that I hadn't seen before, in terms of like, this one is passionate about this thing, or this one gets angry, or this one is fashionable or social or whatever, and it was just like, I don't know, it started to, one thing that I tell people is, for most people, you get married. When you get married, you find out how little you know about each other, and so then you're learning all these things over the first few years of marriage, and then after that, if you're not careful, things can get stale because you already know everything about them. But we have the unique situation, constantly learning new things about our spouse.
Yeah.
And how awesome is that, to where for us 20 years in, it's still new, it's still fresh. And and I consider that a blessing.
I'd suffered from major depression for decades. I had some stress at work, as happens, and I was seeing a psychiatrist who had mentioned that some of his other patients who are getting treated for depression use ketamine or TMS. I'm like, I'll just stick with the pills, it's easier. But then a year later, I was in a really, really bad place. And so I said, I've got to try it. And the ketamine infusions were remarkable. By the third or fourth, I was really noticing differences in my mood that I just never felt. As the weeks and months went on after that, and I was able to have a lot more time of not being depressed, it struck me that I was becoming a new person. And I sort of dubbed myself Mark 2.0. And then what I realized was that we were getting a new relationship, because I'd become a new person, and we had to figure out what this new relationship. And here we are. Now I'm Mark 3.0 plus.
There you go.
Nobody wakes up one morning and says, gee, I heard about this fantastic disorder called D.I.D. I think I want it.
Although
Right.
I say,
Just a second. The reason D.I.D. exists, as you said, Jenna, was because of trauma. And not just trauma, and I'm starting to cry here, as you can tell in my voice, and not just one-time trauma. This is habitual, repeated childhood trauma. There's, we may be able to joke about our alters. We may be able to joke about situations like Tom saying, oh, this can't be a good thing. But the bottom line is D.I.D. is a very serious disorder, and no one, absolutely no one, deserves it. And when people who are first learning about D.I.D. and their spouses who are first learning about D.I.D., they need to understand that no one brought this on to themselves because they were bad. Nobody brought this onto themselves because they didn't do ABC. This was a trauma inflicted involuntarily. And when you put that, when you get that idea, I say you, but anybody, when the person gets that in their head, I can now say, you know what? If we go to the grocery store and 4-year-old Carol wants to front, fantastic. I'm going to be thrilled to shop with a little girl. If Barb comes out and wants to be as effeminate as she is, have at it.
Ebullient.
Yes. Have at it, girl. I don't care that it's a 55-year-old male body. Big deal. And this is, if I went through it, I'm sure all spouses feel that at some point in time. But if they can couch their feelings in the heart of the disease and have a good cry, because it is painful, then basically they can, they can hold up a middle finger to everybody and say, I don't care. If you can't accept it, if you don't like it, that's your problem, baby.
The perspective from my end is, not only is he there as a partner to us, like in marriage, but he has the unique privilege of, you when you know about the trauma, you're like, man, if I could have been there, if I could have been there for you. He has the unique privilege of getting to be there for us at those ages or in those flashbacks where we're back in that place, so that we can grow and heal, so that Lil can have a childhood where she is just playing games and having cartoons and getting to be carefree, and where J.A. can learn that there are people who aren't going to hurt her. And so he gets to be there for me back then in a way that is just miraculous.
Barry, one thing that you had said is kind of couching your feelings a little bit. I think that's why it's so important that us as spouses, that we have somebody who we can talk to, because as we're going through this, you don't want to traumatize further. So if an alter feels like they're not wanted, or that you're embarrassed of them, or that you don't want them around, that's going to be traumatic, because it's going to be like reliving everything all over again.
Right.
And so you do have to couch those, but you can't couch those feelings and just kind of hold them in and never deal with them. So you have to have somebody who you can talk with, and where you can voice those frustrations without injuring your spouse.
I learned early on that in questioning myself, as I said, why do I feel this way? I mean, I love Barb, I love Tom, Blaine, and Carol. Why am I embarrassed? And the question, the answer to that question, unfortunately, is society.
Mm-hmm.
Society says,
stop acting like a child.
Stop acting like a child. Stop being effeminate. Stop being not you. Stop being not you. And fight. How do I put this? Fighting in quotes. Society.
That was weird.
Yeah, because of the background. Fighting with yourself because you know what society says, but you know what you need to do in your heart. It's tough. And the whole process, at least for me, the whole process of embarrassment to why am I feeling this way to it's society, and DID is a traumagenic disorder, happened in the course of maybe 3 seconds. You know, Mark, as my husband, has never done anything to embarrass me. So why would I think that Barb, Tom, Carol, or Blaine would do anything to embarrass me?
Yeah.
And, you know, if there are people out there who feel that embarrassment because a woman is saying, "Oh, thank God I'm wearing pants today," or a man looking down and seeing a skirt, or a male host suddenly having an effeminate side. If spouses see that, they need to tell themselves that this is a disorder, a psychological disorder. And fighting society is tough, whether it's externally or internally. But I think that's the only answer, because at that point, you can love the being that exists, who exists, whether it is the host, any of the alters, the entirety, the entire system. And that's what is needed. That's what's needed for relationships to continue. That's what's needed in society, so that people don't say, "Huh? DID? What's that?" And then you say, "Oh, multiple personality disorder," and people freak out. Mark is autistic. And one of the times Mark was in the hospital, I heard one of the doctors unfortunately make a totally innocent comment, but it's a bit insulting. The doctor said, "You have autism, but you don't look autistic." So with that comment in mind, people need to understand, "Oh, Jenna," I'll mention you since we're looking at each other. "Oh, Jenna, you have DID. Well, you don't look like you have DID."
Right.
You don't seem crazy.
Yeah, you don't seem crazy.
Well, it is rude to ignore the voices in your head. I'm just putting that out there.
I mean, very rude. When someone talks to you, you should listen.
Right.
And
Well,
you should
yeah.
answer.
Valuable. So I know we've got to wrap it up, but what I want to know for both of you gentlemen is if you could go back, Mark phrased this, and I loved it, I'm gonna steal it. Like, if you could go back in time to you at the beginning of all this, what advice would you give to past you for, you know, moving forward and how to live with your spouse with DID?
It's scary now. It really is scary. And it's okay to be scared. It's okay to cry. It's okay to yell and scream. But it really does get better. And it gets so much better that there will be one day, I promise you, when you'll look back and you'll say, "Be careful the arm."
we just got boosted.
We got boosted today. There will be one day when you'll look back and say, I couldn't imagine not having these people in my lives. But talk. Get through the hard conversations and talk.
That is absolutely the thing that I would basically say is, what you're planning on doing in terms of talking and being very open about this, good job. Keep it up.
Yeah, I very much echo all of that. That I thought Jenna and I had a good relationship before, and it's nothing like the relationship that we have now. It's so much better. There's the full spectrum of everything that that is Jenna is now available, and while it's
bite-sized pieces.
That's right. And while it's scary that it wasn't available for so long, and now all these things come rushing in, I agree. Just be patient, and just take the opportunity to not ignore it or not talk about it, but take this opportunity to learn more about the person that you love. You're getting to learn more about them than you ever had available to you before, and take the time, spend time, ask questions, talk about it, and it is going to be scary, and it's going to seem like it's just going to be just this stressful, sometimes uncomfortable process forever and ever till we die. But that is not the way it is. That if, and this is the caveat, if you as a spouse respond in kindness and respond in a genuine just want to have a relationship with you type of way, then it will get better. If you don't, if you try to ignore the fact that this is going on, or if you don't want to talk about it, or if you are embarrassed and make it very known that you are, or anything like that, then it will not get better. It will likely get worse, because then you are basically no longer a team. And so it's encouraging, but it's also a letter of warning as well, that you have to treat the system with as much, if not more, respect than you treated your spouse with to begin.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for getting this all put together.
Absolutely. I was really excited about the idea. I thought this was a great idea. And it's definitely a subject that our community is needing. Like you said, Barry, well, I think it was Barry, might have been you, Mark. A lot of spouses leave. Like, they find out about the diagnosis and they can't handle it.
And
Yeah.
they don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's a common thread in chat rooms, and I don't know, and my spouse is leaving me, and it can definitely work. It is not the end of a relationship. It doesn't exclude you from a relationship, but you have to be willing to know your relationship will look different. It will change,
and it requires a significant investment from both people.
Yes.
Sure.
There were times where we've had long conversations, hours and hours, and we went to bed and continued the conversation the next day. That's just how it is. I'm sure you two did also, but that's needed.
There's a lot of processing going on. And I think what may be overlooked in this community, when you have the D.I.D people suddenly getting flashbacks, all the stuff they're going through, there's a whole processing and grieving of the former part of the relationship that's happening with the spouse as well, or the partner. And that really does not get enough attention, because if you have a fully supportive partner through this, it makes a tremendous difference. I could not be here, 6 months after this all started, and feeling perfectly fine about it, but for all the work he put into it to help me through it.
Oh, absolutely. I tell a lot of people when they're learning, like, if you have a partner, encourage them to go to therapy as well, because it's a lot. They're gonna need support and skills so that they can be there in this process with you. And yeah, it really makes a difference.
Oh, and being part of a community, I think, helps. I found a Facebook group for people supporting those with DID, and recommended he join. In my mind, if nothing else, he would just start learning the language. He would start to see what do people talk about, gaining some familiarity with what it looks like to other people, so he doesn't see his husband of 30 years going through it. And he could learn and catch up in a little bit safer way that way, as well as have a place to ask questions or share his own insights with others.
The Facebook group has been invaluable, and I would certainly recommend it to any spouse.
The hard part is finding the communities.
Yeah.
There are many communities out there, but they're scattered to the wind.
Yeah. And
Google search only goes so far.
That's right.
I think we all build this out of, just experience. And since this is all still new in the psychology realm, psychiatry, that we're all figuring this out as we go. And so the best resource we have are each other, shared experiences.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much. I so appreciate your time and your input, and it was just really lovely getting to talk with you.
Oh, this was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was our pleasure.
That called for anger, and JA was just like, excuse me. JA then in the front being like, look here.
Yep.
Didn't even have to do anything. Thank you. Go right ahead.
We had
my JA is Barb, right?
Yes. We had a situation. Barb came out, and Barb basically said, okay, here's what's going on. You are leaving now. And here is why you are leaving now. And
it wasn't quite that bad.
But
she got forceful. Yeah. She fronted and took over. And I will say it was because of that we had a serious discussion internally about, how we want to act as a unit, and, the whole system responsibility and, all that stuff. And she actually did apologize to him, and they're doing much better now, fortunately.